allegiance to the flag of one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we all sit down, we need to take a moment and remember three people that have been very instrumental to our educational system. Number one is Mrs. Nikki Rose, who was assistant principal at Broadview Middle School for 30-some odd years. Is Erica, won't mess up her last name, who was a media specialist for AIS and South Street School. And last, Mr. J.R. Mitchell, who I served on this board with for over 8 years. And we want to remember, keep all three families in our prayers. Could we just take a moment? Thank you all. Roll call.
Al.
Present.
Terry. Present. Michelle.
Here.
Kate.
Here.
Gladys.
Here.
Dr. Cronin.
Dr. Cronin?
She's there.
Here.
Lauren.
Here.
Here. Juanita.
Here.
Richard.
Here.
Julie.
Here.
Thank you. Public participation.
The board welcomes public participation and asks that speakers please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective comments of school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about Board of Education personnel and students, nor against any person connected with the Danbury Public School System.
Thank you, Ron. No one signed the sheet, so I don't know if anyone in the audience wants to speak.
Hi, I'm Hayden Rogers. I'm the Vice President of BOG. I'd just like to start with a message from Mr. Donovan regarding the vision and mission statements for the new academies. It says, good evening, board members. We are excited to share with you the thoughtful and collaborative process that led to the creation of our school's new vision and mission statements. A team of dedicated teachers, pathway leads, and administrators met periodically to lead this work. The result is a set of statements that reflect our vision for the academies of Danbury, aligned with the portrait of the graduate, and are deeply rooted in our district's mission and vision, ensuring a unified and inspiring direction for our school community. Our journey to crafting these statements began with our team reviewing exemplary vision and mission statements from other districts. This in turn helped provide a lens for writing our own and helped highlight the type of language we felt might be important to include during the writing process. In addition, we spent time reviewing the National Career Academy Coalition rubric to ensure our language aligned with the recognized national standards. Together, the team wrote a draft vision and mission statement. Gathering input was the next step in the process. Surveys were created to gather valuable feedback from students, teachers, and families. These surveys were tested with a small group of faculty members prior to being distributed to the entire school in the final weeks of the 2023-2024 school year. The questions for all surveys were translated into both Spanish and Portuguese in acknowledgement of our large multilingual population. After reconvening the school year, the team reviewed the survey results with the administration and used the data to revise the draft vision and mission statements. They focused closely on ensuring alignment between these statements and the overarching vision and mission statements of Danbury Public Schools. This school year, the team developed flex lessons and conducted another survey to gather more feedback and ensure engagement from both students and staff regarding the updated vision and mission statements. This thorough and inclusive process ensured that our new vision and mission statements embody the essence of the academies of Danbury High School, align with the portrait of the graduate, and reflect our district's overarching vision and mission. We are now proud to share the result of this collaborative effort, our new vision and mission statements. The vision statement. The academies of Danbury High School aspire to be a model community of empowered learners who positively impact the world. Mission statement. The Academies of Danbury High School, in partnership with students, families, and the community, provide transformational learning experiences that empower all students to embody the portrait of a graduate and thrive in their future endeavors. And then I just have some updates from our school. So our semester ends Friday, January 24th. Students in the Exploration Academy began the Academy selection process, and that ends on the 31st. All Academy directors provided information sessions during Flex, and Mr. Donovan presented last night on virtual parent night as well. Winter sports are underway. All of our teams are doing pretty well so far. We have two different Saturday sessions that will be starting soon. One is an SAT practice that runs from January 25th, this Saturday, to March 29th. It's voluntary for students to sign up. It's free SAT tutoring. The second session revolves around AP practice and tutoring, which runs from March through May, intending to provide tutoring for our AP students. We also had in December our National Honor Society Fall Induction. We had 29 new inductees. We also had our career fair in the main gym on December 12th. We had 60 corporate partners rotated through all freshmen, giving them time to explore many different careers that are connected to our Academy pathways. Mr. Donovan had his principal's breakfast where he answered questions from parents. February 1st, we have our DHS robotics competition. February 8th is our Hatter Cheer Fest for our cheerleading team. And finally, our DHS robotics team won their competition at WPI.
Okay, thank you for your information. Does anyone in the board members have any questions to the young lady? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent calendar.
I move the motion that the Board of Education approve consent calendar exhibits 25-07 and 25-08 as recommended and in accordance with minutes of 1/8/25 sites and facilities 25-07 and 1/8/25 regular board meeting 25-08.
Motion made by Juanita. Could I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Julie. Any questions concerning the consent calendar? Seeing none. All in favor, could I hear aye?
Aye.
Motion so carried. We don't have any students rep here tonight. You gonna do a presentation?
No, it's no presentation.
Okay, no
it's just-
presentation. Okay. Next thing is superintendent's report.
That one I got. Okay, so obviously it's a light superintendent's report tonight because the single item that we really should just be focusing on is the superintendent's budget. So yesterday we presented the superintendent's budget. I can go kind of over this a little bit about at a high level. We offered a workshop last night for our board members where we went through a high level overview, but then also a dive into the details that comprise the drivers and the line items. For the budget, this year we aligned our strategic plan along with the needs that we have in the school system. I think it's no secret that we have some serious needs around staffing, our ability to support our schools effectively, climate, and closing the achievement gap. Instead of going through the entire report tonight, under the superintendent's report, I would like just to talk about the high-level drivers, and then when we get to the discussion section of the agenda, open it up for conversation and questions for staff members who were in the workshop, but also those who received materials post-workshop. So if you want to, for those of you who have a packet in front of you, I'll be referring to page 13 under budget drivers. So this year, a large component of the budget is driven by the enrollment needs and the opening of a satellite campus. I'm sorry.
The new one I just gave you.
That would be the new one that Mike did have.
Oh, this
At the
thing.
beginning of the meeting, yep, yep. So,
Yes, they're two.
ironically, I don't have a copy of the new one. So I'll slow up, thank you, got it. So the budget drivers, the main budget driver, a large budget driver in this year's budget is the opening of the academy on the Cardis campus, so that's the DH West. And so what constitute that ask is the need to staff based on the enrollment, moving between 800 and 1,400 kids over in the next year and 2 years. The staff and benefits come to a little over 6 million, maintenance and utilities, over 700,000, transportation, over 2.2 million, technology, 318,000, and school lunch, 360. So that one driver alone in our budget is over $10 million. So that's a significant component. The other main drivers in our budget are going to be the contractual increases. So those are our obligations as we roll up our contracts, our labor contracts, and then the cost of doing business. Restoration of positions that were eliminated last year from the budget, a little over $3 million. Other new positions that are not academy related, that are special education or multi-language learners, and that is over 1.1 million. Offering up a competitive paraeducator staffing model, and that number of 4,944,000 is comprised of right sizing and making a more competitive para contract, but also the addition of para educators at the elementary level, which is very much needed and was requested last year, proposed in the budget for last year. So that need really does not go away. A little over 2.8 million for special education increased costs, so we have a slight uptick in the number of special education students in the district, but also increase in tuition costs out of district and just the cost of doing business there. Our multilingual learner needs and the services that they are entitled to are a little over 1.1 million. Benefits for the staff above are a little over 4.4. Improvements to IT and security, 233,000 plus. And then there's a whole list of other, and those other are coming from dozens of other incremental increases across many, many areas that total 1.87. We went over items in the budget from custodial supplies to instructional supplies to some building repair, increases in building repair, some non-hub transportation costs, some security equipment. Some of the account line items are as little as $750, and some are as large as $400,000. So that total line is comprised of many, many smaller incrementals that add up to 1.8 million, which in and of itself is also a driver. Our total budget, the total requested budget for the superintendent is $194,464,946. That represents an increase of 34 million and almost 34.5 million for a 21% increase. What we discussed in the workshop, and I'll go to closer to the last page, which I believe is page 29, is that when we compare our budget request, it's a 21% increase. 5.2% is dedicated to the academy alone. But had our school system stayed on trajectory, if we were fully funded last year, which we know all the reasons why that was not possible, the increase would really only represent 7.2% of an increase, and that includes the academy. So, I think over the course of time, if we were keeping pace, the asks would not be as astronomical. But we are digging out of a hole in terms of funding, staffing, resources, and coming off a pretty large cliff. Last year, we partnered with the city to do everything possible to close our gaps. We eliminated lots of positions, eliminated over 68 positions plus. We're trying to restore 29 of those because of the critical nature of those and the effects that it's had on the school system. And so in the workshop, we talked a little bit about some comparisons on what staffing levels look like in schools of comparable size, in comparable makeup, in comparable cities, and our need to keep up. So while the ask this year is great, we think it's very important to make sure that our needs are articulated, they're clarified, and they're justified for what we need. So I was happy to present that to the board during the workshop. Certainly happy to open things up. We can move to discussion at the board chair's request or pleasure for questions or comments from the larger board.
Mr. Janelle?
Karen, the new sheet, revised sheet that we received just now for page 13 shows an additional $360,000 for the school lunch. Does that change the total, or is it just added because of the omission somewhere?
So it was actually a $700 adjustment that was made, which I reprinted the sheet because there was just a small number error in the recording. So it was a $700 adjustment. The $360,000 that's there was the number school lunch is part of the cost of opening up the academy. Last night we talked about the school lunch has always been self-sufficient, so that they bring in a revenue that supports the staff that needs to run it. And however, with the opening of a new satellite campus, the scale has tipped a little bit. And so we're going to need an additional $360,000 to staff it, because we cannot pull that staff from Danbury High School. That staff needs to remain there to run the operations, and we need a whole new kitchen staff over at the new site. So that's the increase there for
I
school lunch.
appreciate that. When I do a comparison of last night's page 13 and here, last night didn't have
But
the three.
it was in the total. It was in the
Mike, do you
total.
want to address that? Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize, there was a typo on last night's, the 360 for the school lunch just wasn't listed, it was a typo, but that 10,043,496 remains the
Included
same.
that?
That number is the same,
Okay.
it was just the composition of that
Okay,
number.
that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, it's confusing.
The other question I have is, I think it's important that you mention, and I'll phrase it this way, does this particular presentation budget put us in the 21st century, or is it something else? Is it, you had made a high point last night,
Yeah.
that this was a needs budget?
This is a needs budget. Even though the ask is great, we are, to be perfectly honest, and I did articulate this in the workshop, staffing is imperative right now. The cuts that we made last year had a very detrimental effect across the system. But even more than that, we have to remain competitive with some of our contracts. The paraprofessional dilemma that we're facing right now is real, and it's very true. So paraprofessionals, paraeducators are the lifeblood in many of our schools. They support multilingual learners, they support special education, they support intervention that students desperately need, and particularly post-pandemic, we need our paraprofessionals. Anybody who has had a good paraprofessional in their classroom, for those of you who are educators, they are worth your weight in gold. They help deliver small group instruction, targeted instruction. They help to students who need to be helped with self-regulation. In behavioral, they're one-on-one. They help to help with our class size numbers. So in some cases, that is the only thing that helps make some of our larger class size numbers more tolerable. But because of the pay rate right now that we have with that contract, school systems to retain and attract those positions. Last year we had many openings. This year I think we have between 40 and 50 openings right now. When paraeducators are not in the classroom, it makes the teaching and learning environment very challenging, which also feeds into some climate issues that we have, and safety. And so we've talked a lot about how fixing that particular issue around the paraeducator contract and the needs that we have there are kind of a root cause to a lot of systemic issues that we have across buildings, and in some buildings, it is tenfold because of certain populations that are housed in those buildings. So it's something that we are seeking to correct so that we can bring some more stability to the schools with these very poor positions.
Thank you.
Julie?
Dr. Casimiro, I know that the newsletter has been present and prints of news out. My question is regarding the budget, because I know this was a question a few months ago with some of your teachers around and parents. What would be the worst case scenario if you look at fully funded as one? And how will this, how do teachers feel at this point? How secure they feel they have jobs at this point for the new academies, for those that are going?
Yeah, so last year, the effects of the budget cuts and eliminations and not filling positions has had a very negative effect on culture, morale, climate. We've had people that turned us down right in the hiring process because they were afraid to come here. No one wants to be the last person in. We've had some challenges with special areas. We've had certain groups that we announced that we were on the edge of elimination. It is very hard to attract those groups now. Word is out. So it has had a serious effect on people's want to come here. So that's the attraction teaching realm per se are in line and are highly competitive, I would say. The issue for us has always been conditions. We talked about that in the workshop. Class size, the learner profile that teachers are working with. So a teacher has to teach 8th grade mathematics, for example, could have students in the classroom with anywhere from 2nd grade or 3rd grade mathematical ability to 8th grade or 9th grade. And have to diversify what they're doing and stratify with large class sizes. So conditions for teachers here have been challenging. You know, if we don't get our full ask, we're going to have to go through and scale safety, security, and highest leverage needs. We have legal mandates that we have to follow. There are certain things in here where I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. You know, there are certain things where that have to be covered. We have IEPs, 504s, we've got language needs and service needs. We have safety and security, you know, at the door. People want to make sure that when they drop their children off that they know that they're safe and that they're good. And so we'll have quite a bit of a challenge, and certainly we'll have to make do and figure that out. One of the other things that we're going to have to figure out is in the face of potential, some of our grants, federal grants, could potentially be changing with a different landscape. Enrollment can fluctuate those grants. So when we have a better sense of the grants that we'll have available to us or not available, when we have a sense of what the city can do to provide whatever it is that they can provide, we recognize that they are also in a situation that they're working through. Then we'll have to come back to the drawing board and scale through our highest priorities.
Okay. Teresa? Judith, do you have another? I'm sorry.
My apologies. This might be for Ms. Thompson. I know that you mentioned, Dr. Casimiro mentioned about contracts. When we can start seeing like reviewing new contracts for parents and overall, and review what is the increase and how can that affect us in the near future?
So, because we have so many non-certified contracts coming up this spring, they all expire, all of those one-year agreements we entered into expire on June 30th of this year. Because we have so many of them, typically the time frame would be mid-spring, we would get a demand bargain from the union leadership. I've encouraged all of them to push that timeline up a little bit so that, because if you figure, you know, you need multiple sessions with each one of those groups, so we're talking about a lot of time to get through the process. So we're now in the process of picking for all of those 5 unions, trying to pick some dates so we can start a little bit earlier. I will tell you that it is more often the case that some of these are settled after July 1, and in those cases, unlike the teachers, they work under their existing contract and they'll look at, you'll see we'll do retroactive raises or something like that. So
you're not going to know with any certainty as you lock down this budget what those numbers are going to look like, which is why you see us trying to approximate kind of a larger number for personnel. And because it's so many contracts, we have to guess a little more than we might otherwise. The other group that we will negotiate with this summer, while it doesn't impact this budget, it impacts your next one, is the teachers. So, and that's your largest group, and that is your most influential group in terms of moving the needle, in terms of wages and costs. That group will have a good sense as we hit, I want to say it's July time. You're going to get a real good sense of what the next year's contract is going to look like, but that's also going to really inform kind of some of how we allocate. So that's a long way of saying you're not soon.
Teresa?
I just realized, looking at that, the list for the academies, I don't see anything about furniture.
No. The furniture is mainly incorporated into the package in the build for the bond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Just a point of note, we sent out this is kind of hot off the press, and we're still going to leave the survey open, but as of today, and thank you, Mike, for printing this out, we had asked our parents what their priorities are. We tried to solicit some feedback from across different groups. I've been out talking to some other groups in the schools as well. But in terms of our parents and their budget priorities, we asked, we had 600 respondents of the parent survey that we sent out, asking what their top budget priorities were for the coming year. And the top 3 were supporting sports, arts, and extracurricular opportunities for students, including the smaller, that was number 3, and upgrading school facilities. So those are the top 4 of the respondents, kind of categorically of what parents wanted to see. The board did also send out their climate survey as well. While that's still largely open, if you skimmed it very quickly, you can see many of the same things that I talked about in the workshop as well as tonight, that staffing and resources and substitutes and smaller class sizes and the supports needed in the classroom are all over that survey for the results that are coming in, which has an effect on climate. So we sort of expected to see some of those things for sure, but you know, really listening to what our staff has to say about those issues is also very important. And again, the budget that's presented reflects those needs and those priorities, not just my own personal, but that of the cabinet, that of those of the principals, that we spend a lot of time working with one-on-one to understand their needs, and to make sure that we have staffing that addresses their legal obligations, their compliance obligations, but also some ability to close the achievement gap. And so, you know, we could certainly add in dozens more staff here to help with that. This is a responsible budget to the greatest extent possible, even though the ask is large. But our needs are great. We have many years to play catch up. So this is a step in that direction. Yes.
Jude.
Oh, sorry.
Out of that survey, my apologies, I have so many questions. Out of that survey, which one you did, out of the 4 critical, which one do you think is the most critical? And how are we gonna, what's the plan to address it in order to keep moving and make it feel that those that fill out the survey feel that they have been heard?
Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, for parents, you know, every parent wants to make sure that their child is involved in something that they love and is passionate about. But internally, you know, there's an assumption that our schools are safe, they're still well staffed, and that we're, you know, that we have everything that we need. And so, on the set, so the first one that the parents had to say was obviously about the having access to extracurriculars. But the very second one is about increasing safety measures. That is very important. Class size is very important. So I would agree that the parents nailed it when it came down to some of these priorities, because teaching and learning and student outcomes are directly affected by what you're able to get done in the classroom. And our teachers need help and support in the classroom. Post-pandemic, the needs of students have doubled, in some cases tripled. The academic stretch, if you will, and closing the achievement gap has become greater. Therefore, the effort must match that divide. We have large class sizes here, larger than we would want to have. This particularly given the stratification of learner profiles that we have in the classroom. The paraprofessionals, why they're such a great asset, is not just about right-sizing that contract to make sure that we retain and attract high-quality paraeducators to support our work, but also increasing the number that we do have. It would make absolutely no sense for me to throw in another 45 paraeducators that we need at the K-5 level if we were not going to correct and create a competitive wage for them, because I wouldn't get them. So we have 40 to 50 openings now. We cannot get those staff members because we cannot offer a competitive wage that's in line with other area school systems, or even the mall for that matter. I'm happy to take any other questions. Okay. So the question then, I think for the board and for the chair is sort of next steps with this budget. There are a couple of options ahead. We can continue to have another workshop and we could set a date for that. We can move forward tonight if the board felt ready with supporting superintendent budget and passing. There are a couple of options, and I welcome discussion on it, and certainly flexible at your will.
An option to accept the budget tonight, right?
There can be. I have a motion prepared if the board chooses.
Mm-hmm. What is your
question?
Yes, question.
Dr. Casimira, and our
Well, Juanita's going ahead, so go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
She just told her.
At our workshop, there were a couple of areas that I particularly had asked. We have a number of buildings that we lease, and looking for the cost of that and any other alternatives.
Yes.
That was one. And the other was where in the budget can we find for the yearly, the 1-year contracts, the non-union?
The exempt staff.
They were all grouped last year with an across-the-board increase. And where is that in our financial budget report now?
Sure. So, Mike Weaver, do you have the copies of?
We're still working on getting the final numbers for the exempt staff. We just pulled a report today.
We can't hear
We
Mike.
just have to review it.
We can't hear you.
Mike is on.
Is it on?
We just read the report today for the exempt staff. We just have to review it before it goes out, just to double check the numbers. But as far as where the numbers exist in the budget that you see, it's in the salary line with all the budgets. So that the 25 budget where the 90 million is, that's everybody. That's an all.
Yeah, but we wanted to see it broken out.
Excuse me, Teresa. He's trying to answer her. Okay,
Right.
And then you can come in. Okay?
Yes, we're preparing a schedule to have the exempt salaries broken out.
Can I just clarify that, because we don't apply, the number, all the salary increases are rolled up into that $4.5 million number. The actual percentages don't get applied until later in the year after the budget's settled. And that is done as we're negotiating multiple contracts, where things land, where we land with the budget, where we land with prevailing wages. So the allocation of the 4.5 million is what rolls forward at the end of the process when the budget settles. We have to reallocate within the allocation, within the total overall allocation, if that makes sense. And with the exempt staff, you know, where we have contracts that are fixed, teachers union, they have those at fixed rate, the paraprofessionals, custodians, the exempt wage, if you will, that sheet can have different numbers on it, but not over the allocation that was set aside when the budget settles. You have to stay within, the superintendent has to stay within the allocation. But we'll provide that for you, Michael, as soon as they finish printing that out. But it'll be a schedule of the current salaries of everybody in that group.
Teresa?
No, she answered my question, thank you.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to make a suggestion.
We can't hear you. Please use your microphone.
I'd like to make a suggestion that we vote on this budget. Thank you. We vote on this budget this evening with the understanding that the additional information, supplemental information that we requested would be forthcoming. I don't believe anything that we've requested is going to change any of these numbers, so it's more informational, factual for us for discussion. I say that because I think the faster we adopt this and get this show on the road, to get this out to those concerned that we want to educate and tell them what we're doing to get support is important. You know, as I said, the other stuff is information that we can discuss, but I don't think anything is going to change these numbers or is that anything new.
Mike does have the leases.
Thank you.
Our hands up.
So, Ms. Harris, just to speak a little bit to the leases, I have last year's list and I wanted to update it with this year's numbers before I sent it over, but I can give you a pretty close number on where they are. So there's 6 different properties. 2 of them are used for district offices, 2 of them are pre-K sites. We have our adult ed site, and then we have our curriculum building at 46 Beaverbrook. So all together, that's about $740,000 annually that we spend on those leases. So you've probably heard of these sites, referred to as 43 Beaverbrook, 46 Beaverbrook, Granville, where the preschool is, Sacred Heart, which is, we also call it Cottage Street, where the other preschool program is. We raise adult ed over on Crosby Street, where we also have the Reach Endeavor building. And then we have another section at 43 Beaverbrook, where we have district office space as well.
Michelle?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I know we're talking about the budget and that we talked about how the Board of Ed has worked hand in hand with the city. And so can you tell me a little bit about how that is being infused in with this budget? Do we have any kind of information from the city, from the mayor himself, or, regarding this budget? Because I know that was a big point of communication, working together. Just wondering how they kind of are falling in line with what you're proposing here.
Sure. So just to clarify, what I was referencing earlier was our work together with the city. So we spent a lot of time once our needs were laid on the table, and of course we had a new mayor and a new interim superintendent. So we worked very closely last year to talk about the need. We did have some discussion today because we released our superintendent budget on what those needs were to understand the components of the budget. And so there's an understanding of what our needs are as well. We know this is a great ask. I have confidence that our city leaders will do everything possible to help meet the needs to the best of their ability. So I have monthly meetings set up from this point forward for the rest of the year. So as everybody's working on the budgets. The education budget is one budget of many budgets that the city deals with, and as the mayor works through all of the budgets, we'll be in contact. It takes several months. It's a several-month process for everybody to understand where they're at and where they land, and what's available to us on both sides.
Okay.
Richard?
To follow up on Michelle's point, I think I mentioned it the other day, once the budget's officially adopted, would you consider contacting, I believe her name is Holly Robinson, who's part of the committee, I guess finance or education ad hoc, and some of the other legislative people, so that you can make this presentation to the, I'm going to call it the officials relative to Danbury, so you can get them informed as to what's happening.
Absolutely, that's 100% the intention, is to make sure that our delegates are really well aware of what our needs are. We've already started that conversation, so, and I'm thankful for the open dialogue.
Any other questions?
So do we want to adopt the budget?
So you at the point that we want the board to adopt the budget.
I would like that if that was
So
possible.
we have the motion.
Certainly understanding that there's some other information that's outstanding that's wanted, and we'll make sure we get that out.
So before, we're not going to do it right now. We're going to come back and do that when we finish with. We're going to have those in action item. So we're going to come down, the superintendent finish her report. So we're going to go to the standing committee. We should take about a few minutes to do this. Community relations.
Our next meeting is scheduled for November 12th. We may try to call a meeting again now that we have the budget numbers in front of us, so we can discuss the strategy for sharing this information with the public.
Curriculum.
We have our next meeting in February, and it's a discussion on AI in the schools.
What day? Finance.
We had a meeting on January 15th, Mike Weaver presented the
You guys still not talking into your mic. We can't hear you when you turn it to the side. You start talking into your mic. And the audience can't hear you.
Okay. We had a meeting on January 15th. The Finance Committee, Mike Weaver presented the financial statements as attached to the package for the period, 6-month period ending December of 2024. Mike had taken out, his comments were, he took out that $7.5 million ARPA money that initially was listed as part of the budget. So he took that out to reflect the budget, truly of the appropriation for the $160 million. Keeping on to indicate that the available positive fund balance at this point here was $5.4 million. We also thank Mike for his work and his assistant for his work relative to the audit. The audit's plural, getting work with the budgets, and on the reports, the financial reports, we talked about in the near future, as soon as we get through the budget process, that these variances will be looked at and talked over and cleaned up.
Thank you, Mr. Jamil. Policy.
Our next meeting is scheduled for February 6th.
Sites and facilities.
Our next meeting is scheduled for February 24th.
Have we cleared all our meetings, this extra meeting with the necessary people we're supposed to clear with?
Sites and facilities?
Yeah, both meetings, the policy and sites and facilities.
Policy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we need to add an action item on the agenda. If there's no other questions concerning the budget, in the committees, we're gonna add the action item to the agenda.
All right. Motion that the Board of Education add an action item to the agenda to adopt the superintendent's proposed 2025-2026 budget.
Motion made by Louisa,
Second.
seconded by Kate. All in favor, could I hear aye?
Aye.
People that are in Zoom, on Zoom,
Michelle? Dr. Cronin? Hello?
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Bless you.
okay, so we read the motion,
Motion that the Board of Education adopt the superintendent's proposed 2025-2026 budget in the amount of $194,464,964 as presented for submission to the mayor as required by city charter and in accordance with 25-11.
Motion made by Louisa, and second, second by Julie. Any questions? All in favor, could I hear aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Action item A.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2024-2025 Board of Education goals in accordance with Exhibit 25-09.
Motion made by Kate,
Second.
seconded by Lauren. Any question concerning the goals? I would just like to thank the board for participating in putting those goals together. And at some point, I'm quite sure that we can always add to those goals. But it's the first time that I've been on the board that we've had board goals. So I really want to thank those for sharing their information with the group and putting this to, making sure that it happens. Action item B.
Motion that the Board of Education approve the November, December financial reports as recommended by the Finance Committee and in accordance with Exhibit 25-10.
Second.
Didn't call me. Okay. I'm sorry, before I go back, I was moving along too fast. On action item A, I didn't call for the vote. I thought I did. All in favor of the motion, could I hear aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's okay. Mr. Janella, did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
I second.
Okay.
Al seconded.
Okay. Al seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions concerning action item B?
I'm mixed up. Louisa, you did the A? You did A action item?
No.
No,
Kate did A.
Then what did you do?
I did nothing.
She did
She
the
added the action
additional
item to the
action
motion.
item. She did pre-A of the budget.
Yeah. No.
Okay, all right, fine, because I got more than one.
You didn't have to, this is an add-on motion for the budget.
Oh, I didn't
That's
have
what
that.
we're.
I don't have that one.
Yeah, give it to me.
Yep.
So good. So good.
Here, Teresa. We
All
don't
right,
have
thank
this
you, hon.
additional budget.
Thank you. Thank you, sorry about that.
I thought I was losing it too. Should I carry the motion through for that?
B, we have to, no,
Did you beat?
no, you have to finish B.
You just have to take a vote.
Rich made the motion, Al seconded the motion. Are there any questions concerning the motion? All in favor of the motion, could I hear aye?
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
so carried, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, is there any information at this time that board members want to bring to the board at this particular time? Concerning education issue, why you here? Okay, what?
I just wanted to mention that I attended the legislative breakfast sponsored by CAVE yesterday. It was held in Ridgefield. Dr. Kessler was there. Julie was there as well. And there was some robust conversation about upcoming legislative priorities and sort of, what other districts are also interested in seeing go forward this legislative session. And the top Senate bill that was proposed centers around individual student performance for special ed students and how that funding works. So I just want to share that with the board.
Thank you. Made sure that the board was represented. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Kate. Yes.
I just want to thank all the members of the board for supporting the budget that was proposed. I know it was a big nugget. As we push that forward, we do so as a team. And, when the results of how we're funded come back, we'll also do that as a team as well. And I want to just say I appreciate your support. And for those of you who came to the workshop, for digging in and asking some really good questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Board chairperson report. I would just like to ask board members that have signed up for committees, if you're not going to be able to attend the meeting, just please let Carol know, or the chairperson of that committee know that you won't be here, okay? We know that everybody can't be in a place 100%, okay? So, and Carol does a lot of telephone calling and trying to make sure that when she sets up the meeting, we have a group. So, just respond. The other item I'm going to take care of at another time, but again, I hope that we continue to work together as a board and try to make this district what we said that we would like it to be, the best district it is in Connecticut. Okay, so at our expulsion hearings, that's what I want to do. We need to pick up. And everybody that can get involved in expulsion hearing. We shouldn't have the same 1 or 2 or 3 people always doing expulsion hearings. We have 11 people on the board, okay? And we can take turns. We have changed the hours. Instead of 3:30, 4 o'clock, we're doing some of the expulsion hearing at 6:30. So it shouldn't be the same people all the time doing expulsion. Okay? Thank you. That's my report. There's nothing else that needs to be said. Entertain a motion.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
To Dr. Katzenberg. I keep looking at the drawing, the rendition. Is that actually 2 buildings for this new high school? If so, what's the difference between the 2 buildings? Is that just a conceptual?
So there's a bridge, there's another building on the other side, but this is one building. It's just the way that it's leveled that it looks like it's 2, but there's a entrance from there's a
Hologic, I think.
Well, Hologic is behind it. Yeah. So this is, it's a pretty impressive building. It's a very good size building. So it looks like 2 because of the way that it's broken up. But one side has a lower level. The back side is a higher.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
made by Kate, seconded by Julie. All in